You are listening to The Robert Scott Bell Show.
These days, it's more important than ever to know where our food and supplements come from. That's why at Plus CBD Oil, we believe it is critical to manage every step of the supply chain process. It all starts with certified hemp seeds. Our hemp grows tall, like bamboo, and is harvested within 3 months. After harvest, the hemp is dried and sent to our CO2 extraction facility, where our raw formula is extracted. The extracted oil is then lawfully imported to our state-of-the-art in-house laboratory in San Diego, California. There, we convert our raw formula into our total plant complex and gold formula oils. Our oils are then used to formulate our award-winning Plus CBD oil product line. The products are then tested for cannabinoid content and the absence of harmful substances. But we go one step further. We then send our products to a third-party laboratory to verify concentration, quality, and safety. After that, the products have finished their journey and are ready to be shipped to your local health food store. Because at Plus CBD Oil, we believe how you do anything is how you do everything. That's why, from seed to shelf, we are committed to providing safe and effective hemp CBD products for you and your loved ones. It's our promise to you. Learn more about our commitment to full traceability at pluscbdoil.com.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information.
I've learned so much from him.
It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
All right, is this the year we make contact? Contact with what? Alien life forms? No, we are the alien life forms. Is this the year we make contact with our sanity? Is this the year we make contact with common sense and limited government and the recognition that government made so large, so centralized, so viable and controllable that our freedom would be relegated to the dustbin of history? Welcome to the Robert Scott Bell, y'all. I know for those of you watching online visually, you're like, why did you dress up? It's because I have to give a presentation after the show today on the dangers of real ID and where it is inevitably going, and it will be a shocking presentation. They tell me that they're going to videotape it without tape, of course. There's no tape anymore. I'm old enough to remember that, but we used to have tape and everything. But I don't know how they're going to make it available. I don't know that it's going to live stream. I don't know, but we'll somehow make it available to you. It's going to be devastating. And I say that, is this the year we make contact with our rationality, with our sense? How about, is this the year we make contact with our spirituality? Some of you have said, I'm already there, Robert. Good, great. We need more of you. But what does that mean? To connect to your spirituality. It means you're living differently. You're not living as a sheeple. You're not living as a slave to any man or woman, for that matter. You would be a humble servant of God, the Creator, however you determine it to be. I know I'm like, now you've stepped in it, Robert. You've overstepped your bounds. You can't say that. Well, I did, and I continue to do so because it's our misplaced faith. It's our misplaced desire to get along with the government or the people who believe in it. With the people who believe in vaccinations. It's like, you can believe in it, but your belief stops when you start saying the government should shoot you up with whatever I say you should be shot up with because I'm afraid of you unless you get those shots. And the way the government is going to go about it, because I think the vast majority of even pro-vaccine adults are not going to be into mandates on flu shots or HPV shots or name the 250 other shots coming down the pike. So as we start the Robert Scott Bell Show today, it is Friday. For those of you listening live in 2020, our first Friday of the month, which means it's Healing Revolution time. And Dr. Frank King's going to join us. And we're going to get into before you have a chance to get burned out. How are we going to protect you? How are we going to correct it? Maybe it's already happened, adrenal burnout from the holidays. We're going to revisit that topic, and there are going to be some techniques that Dr. King will share with all of us as to how you can determine how are your adrenals. Are they functioning, or are you already in burnout phase? So stick with us. We got a lot of cool stuff to go on the Robert Scott Bell Show today, including good news and bad news. Now, I guess it's a subjective thing. The first story of today being a good news story. For some, it would be bad news. What is the story? Well, it relates to your parental authority and supporting it on the state level. Yeah, you're a mom, you're a dad, and you have kids. And there's a state government or people within a state government proposing that we need to strengthen that autonomy, family sanctity, family sovereignty, and that the family, the moms and dads, should have the authority when it comes to medical decisions, including and especially medical decisions related to what? Vaccination. If I show you here in today's show notes, this is where we're going. This is the Robert Scott Bell Show page, robertscottbell.com. You're going to see some glow-in-the-dark needles if you're not knowing what you're looking at. And Bill Gates, what is that all about? We'll get to the Tattoo You version of Bill Gates. But Arizona parental choice is where we start. That's where we are today. And here's the story. And thanks to the 10th Amendment Center, Michael Bolden and the crew, this one's from Davis Taylor, writing for the 10th Amendment Center. It says, Arizona bill would establish parental choice on vaccines, reject federal narrative. This is big, y'all. This is a good news scenario. This is why we're going to start on the happiest news of the day. Now, it hasn't passed. It's a proposal. It's been pre-filed in Arizona, and it would strengthen parental rights to make vaccine decisions and push back against any future federal vaccine mandates. This happened on December 11th of 2019. State Rep John Fillmore. We got to get him on this show, Super Don. Make a note of State Rep John Fillmore, Apache Junction, Arizona. I want that guy on the show. He pre-filed House Bill 2050, which would give parents of children who are pupils under Arizona law the sole right to decide whether or not their children are vaccinated. It would prohibit schools from requiring that pupils receive the recommended vaccinations and prohibit schools from refusing to admit or from otherwise penalizing pupils who have not received them. However, the bill would allow a school to exclude a pupil if he or she is lacking a vaccine for which is manifesting right now, right? There's an outbreak of something and you don't have the shot, you get to stay home. I've never argued against that. Like, that's fine. That's fine. So this is a common sense bill. The bill would additionally eliminate a requirement that children be vaccinated in accordance with the recommended schedule in order for their parents to receive cash assistance from the state on their behalf. So it's rather interesting, and good on you, Arizona, particularly Rep. John Fillmore. We're just establishing, or he's just establishing, hey, a right that is right of the parent. Ninth Amendment, you can read about it there as well. But again, those amendments don't grant you rights. They acknowledge rights that pre-exist government. That you would have the autonomy as a family, as a mom and a dad, to say, you know what? We don't want the shots. And you can't stop us from sending our kid to school. Now, what's interesting about the language in this, they use the term pupil, P-U-P-I-L. And it's sort of like the term person. It means John Fillmore has selected this word because it has a specific definition in Arizona's code or constitution. Person is not necessarily a human being. Just to give you an example at the federal level. A person under the Internal Revenue Code is a corporation, a partnership, and on and on. You're like, what? I thought a person was a human being. No, not necessarily. They get to define their terms in the four corners of a contract that you sign, and you think, well, I didn't know that I signed it, and it meant that I agreed to all the terms. Yeah, it means you understand everything, which means you stand under it. You have acquiesced to the jurisdiction of someone who wanted to kind of trick you into a substandard or a lower standard of reality, a lower standard of existence. Are you a person subject to the jurisdiction thereof? Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just giving you perspectives on words, definitions, meanings, etc. And what's intriguing to me about this bill that this guy filed in December is it acknowledges the term. Now, your kid might not be a pupil. What if you did not ask for permission of the state to get married? You didn't get a license. Yes, you went to your spouse-to-be and said, will you marry me? And she said yes. And you're like, okay, but I'm not getting a license. We're not asking permission where none is required. We don't want the state involved in our holy union, our holy matrimony. So you go to your church or your religious institution, you say, we want to get married. Now, interestingly enough, if your church, synagogue, mosque, temple, whatever, is a 501c3 nonprofit religious organization, they're going to say you need a license. You're like, whoa, Robert, what do you mean? It's the church. They wouldn't say that. Yeah, they would. If they have asked permission to be a nonprofit religious organization. Again, this is define your terms, understand the church, synagogue, mosque you're working with. I'm not telling you to do it or not do it. I'm just giving you perspective here. If you wonder why they say, well, you can't get married in this church unless you have a marriage license. It's like, well, no, I was granted license by God to be married. I'm an adult. My spouse to be is an adult. We've come together and we want to spend the rest of our life together. We want to be married. And you're telling me I have to ask permission of the state? The church will say, yeah, because they're a registered 501c3 nonprofit, despite the fact in the Constitution, by definition, a religious institution of any kind is nonprofit. You didn't have to ask for special permission, but they've tricked you. They've tricked your church. They've tricked you. This is on and on. I mean, this is deep stuff, folks. And it's upsetting, too. And I'm not telling you not to where to worship or not to. That's not what I'm saying. I want y'all to have eyes open in 2020. Like I said, is this the year we make contact with rational discourse and discussion about things that they would dismiss as flighty conspiracy theories, as opposed to legal facts defined in code, whether it appears in your Constitution or Code of Federal Regulations or state codes that alter your status at law based on your acquiescing blindly, unconsciously, ignorantly. Didn't matter, ignorance. What do they say? Not an excuse. And you went in and you said, oh, I didn't know. So you didn't get married with a license. That's cool. And you have kids. And they don't have birth certificates. How are they alive? How do you even know they're alive? They have to be stamped with something. The state has to say they're alive. Like, no, they're breathing. And you record it in your family Bible. They're alive. This is the date of birth. This is the birthday, I shall say. Date of birth, that's an interesting concept as well, y'all. Date of birth. That's the birthing of a ship into admiralty jurisdiction. When you birth a ship, it's a date of birth versus the birthday. There's a distinction that is like, well, it's lost on most everybody. And it matters. In law, words that you use and their definitions matter, or else what would be the point? You can say anything and say, well, it didn't mean that. Doesn't mean it. No, they define it, but you're not privy to the definition, so you just assume, date of birth. And then your child becomes a vehicle for the state, collateralized for a debt that could never be repaid. And then they give them a number. They number them like cattle. Again, to collateralize them, to make them less than human, to make them persons, to make them slaves to another system, international bankers, fraudulent bankers. And so you say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And now I don't even want to send my kids to public government schools, which is a privilege, not a right. I know that some constitutions say it's a right. The child has a right to a public education. I'm sorry. You can't make a right out of thin air. It's a privilege, and they can basically revoke the privilege. And this is what we see time and time again now with vaccine mandates and school participation in New York, Rockland County, et cetera, all of the things that they're doing, even the Amish community. Like, you can't send your Amish kids to school in an Amish private school. Question is, has the Amish school asked for permission to be a religious school? And that's where it made its first mistake. You think, well, we're just trying to get along. We're trying to be good stewards. We're trying to get along with the state government. You're like, dude, when you do that, you are granted special status by the king. In this case, government, plays the role of king. And it says in order to do that, you have to follow certain rules. And now those rules include violating your fundamental religious freedom, your belief that injecting aborted fetal tissue or animal DNA, RNA into your child is against your religious belief. It doesn't matter. You ask for permission. You ask for the school. The school asks for permission. You're sending your kid to a school that the government has deemed, that's a school now. Again, we went so awry when we disconnected from the real source of creation, our creator, God, and replaced it with government. Does it mean that there's no role for government in our lives? No, that's not what I've ever said. But when you acquiesce to government's role in establishing your very existence, I think something went wrong at the word go. Because your children are no longer children of God. Yes, they are in reality, but we kind of turn them over inadvertently. And we don't think about the consequences of that because no one ever spelled it out. They didn't teach you this. For the last 100 years, they've been teaching you about the glory of government, collectivism, socialism, communism, and then we see Generation Y and Z, millennials, post-millennials. And they, not all of them, but a lot of them are going, yeah, socialism's good, collectivism's good. We need that. As evidenced by Bernie Sanders' likelihood to get the nomination if Biden doesn't. That's half of the population, maybe not, but it's a significant portion of the population that go, yeah, collectivism, let's go. Which means, again, all persons, not human beings, become what? Vessels for the state. And in marriage licenses, you can research this and find, my gosh, there are hidden clauses associated with asking for permission to get married by the state. Inclusive of what? Inclusive of statements like the fruits of the marriage can become wards of the state at our pleasure, at our discretion. We don't like the way you're raising your kid, we're coming to get them. You've invited the vampire into your house and you didn't even know it. And you wonder why they can just walk right in. Where's your warrant? Where's your this? Where's your court order? Oh, no, we just came in. You gave us permission. You don't realize these contracts of adhesion mean something or else they wouldn't exist. Why would they do this? And that doesn't even get to the stuff where we go into the real ID and how this is a globalist phenomenon. This is World Health Organizations, United Nations, IMF, World Bank, Federal Reserve, on and on and on, to make every child born in America a slave to the state. It's pretty crafty. And I will give this Arizona bill and the writer of the bill some credit probably for knowing some of this. If I go back to this story from the 10th Amendment, I know this is butt ugly stuff. I say it's a good news story, but I got to bring you perspectives you're not going to get anywhere else. And I would ask you to engage and rationally go through this study for yourself. Don't believe what I'm telling you just because I'm saying it. I don't want followers. I'm more interested in you being independent and connecting to the source of all sources. Therefore, you will be directed by divine spirit, not a renegade homeopathic talk show host. I'm not interested in telling you what to do. In fact, on federal policy, it says passage of HB 2050 in Arizona would strengthen parental rights and make enforcement of any future federal vaccine mandates more difficult. Vaccine mandates, which are based on CDC recommendations, currently exist at the state level and apply only to children. Yeah, but that's only now because it's coming for you, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa. Look at this. He recognizes, this is the 10th Amendment Center article, federal mandates. Argentina, Italy, France. Remembering Scott Gottlieb, the FDA commissioner, saying that we need to make mandates for everybody, including adults, on the federal level. And then he ran off to work for Pfizer after being the head of FDA. Julie Gerberding, head of CDC, went to Merck. Revolving door. Strong centralized bureaucracy captured by industry. Feds explicitly stated goals of increasing overall vaccination rates, increasing rates specifically in the adult population. This is some of the stuff that I've got to bring up. How are they going to achieve the goal? Because you're not going to go in willingly. Y'all aren't going to do that. No way you're shooting me up with that stuff. Oh, but they got another plan for you. And it relates to Real ID. The government has removed liability. This is a great article from the 10th Amendment Center. I love this. They hit the highlights here. Normal rules of discovery don't apply. If you have to sue a vaccine manufacturer, you can't do it. You go to the vaccine court, the unconstitutional vaccine court, and you can't even get discovery. And guess what? They've got 250 or more vaccines in the pipeline ready to be approved and then mandated because you've acquiesced. You are now a citizen subject to the jurisdiction thereof, or a person or a pupil, maybe. Even as this law in Arizona, if it were passed, would eliminate some of the onerous requirements for attendance of a public school or in a government indoctrination center. This is amazing. You all have to read this. So they're going to introduce HB 2050 here in January, on January 13th in Arizona. And there are a lot of great links there. So congratulations, Arizona, at least partway there. We'll see where it goes from here. Because not every state's like this. And, I say I'm reluctant to engage in Hegelian dialectic discussion other than talking about it. And I struggle with this. I was talking with Super Don before I went on the air today about, dagnammit, because there's a good news scenario. This is a good news proposal in Arizona. It is overall. It acknowledges a lot of things. It's just great. Overall, it's a very positive step in a right direction. I mean, I go as far as I would go, but hey, okay, we'll let you go. I mean, it incrementally went bad. Why can't it incrementally go good? I'm not opposed to that. So take it at the pace you're comfortable with. But from Arizona, which I have to acknowledge is a red state, pretty much controlled by the Republicans on that state level, we go to Virginia. Virginia, blue state, controlled by Democrats. You've been hearing all about the gun confiscations, gun grabs, despite so-called claims of Second Amendment sanctuary status, which the 10th Amendment Center has acknowledged. It's more of a non-binding statement, but hey, it's a start. Virginia bill will allow children, if it passes, to decide on vaccines without parental knowledge or permission. I talk about no permission being required. I didn't mean if you're a kid that your mommy and daddy didn't have to give permission. And in Virginia, this bill would basically say, kids, hey, kids, get your shots like your friends. Be cool like all the other kids. And it doesn't matter that your mommy and daddy don't want you to get the shot. If we're successful in Virginia, the Democrats of Virginia, you'll be able to get your shot and you don't have to tell mommy or daddy. You won't have to ask them. We'll just do it. Doctors, pharmacists, school administrator, nurses. We don't need your mommy and daddy involved in this decision making. You're a kid. We will grant you special adult status when it comes to making fully informed decisions about whether to be injected with vaccines. And of course, all of you would immediately argue, of course, children can determine that and grant informed consent. You think I'm making this up? No, check it out at Health Impact News. It's at robertscottbell.com. Link it up. This is the horrific bad news story of the day. And this is where I go, yes, there is a difference between temporarily or currently between Republicans and Democrats. In a lot of ways, you could say they're all for big government, but in certain areas, the Republicans are just plain better. I have to say it. I know I'm reluctant to do it because I'm not a big party guy on either side of the coin here. I'm a liberty guy. And if the Democrats were for freedom for parents to say no to vaccines, I'd be praising them at this point. I can't. They're not. It's the Republicans. So we're in Virginia, a blue state. SB 104 would amend and reenact the Virginia Code relating to vaccines for minors, giving them authority to consent. The bill would allow doctors and other medical workers to administer vaccines recommended by the U.S. CDC to a minor child of any age. Any age. You read that. This is like post-birth abortions. Any age? Okay, this 2-year-old. We got a hold of this 2-year-old and we'll just explain what's going on and that 2-year-old will be capable of going, yep, go ahead, give me the shot. This is any age after obtaining consent of the minor child and making a determination that the child has the ability to understand the risks and benefits. How do you determine a child who, under normal circumstances in any state, the age of majority typically is 18 before you can give consent, or you can join the armed forces. I mean, you can't even drink, quote unquote, alcohol. But you can go and they say you can't smoke, on the thing. But 18, yeah, you're an adult now. But hey, if you're 6 years old, we'll treat you like an adult because we think your mom and dad don't know better, and you would if we could just explain to you. All your friends are getting it done. Get the shot. Don't be crying for your mommy. You don't need your mommy. You're a big girl now. Just get your shot. Virginia is set. I mean, if they're willing to do this to children, how is it not a horrific but logical conclusion that they'll say, hey, if a 6-year-old can consent to getting vaccinations, which could risk their very life, people die, kids can die, they do. Not everyone, I know, but it could happen and has happened. Why wouldn't Democrats be willing to also say, hey, a 6-year-old can consent to sex with an adult? And if you think that's a horrific thing to say, just look at the sexualization of the, you don't even give kids a chance to be kids anymore. And the arguments that are happening. This is a natural extension, unnatural, I shall say, extension. Once you grant kids the authority to bypass their parents, to do whatever the heck you say is better for them because their parents don't know, what can they not do? If they can mandate this for kids, and of course, inevitably for adults, what can they not mandate you to do or accept? Again, not just the existing schedule of vaccination, but the ongoing explosive growth of any and all that they just come down the pike, go through the ACIP committee at CDC and go, yep, add that to the list, add that to the list. And y'all are going to go, no way. I get it. You're going to say no way. Until they say, well, you can't get on this airplane. You can't enter the federal building. You can't get on the bus. You can't. In fact, you can't start your car. We have the technology that says, hey, scan your ID. Scan your real ID. It's got biometric unique identifiers tied into your medical records. Your car won't start. You think I'm exaggerating? Oh, I got some stuff tonight that I'll be sharing. Maybe some of the stuff, in fact, today during the show. We'll show you where they would like to take this if you just lay down and go, yeah, real ID. Can't fight it. Can't do anything about it. They can mark me. Well, they're going to mark you for real. Not just the ID that you carry. It might not. This is just a temporary hiccup along the way to the real ID that they want to embed into you. And I've got information on that. So SB 104 in Virginia, Democrat-controlled blue state Virginia, wants to legally make minors adults for the purpose of denying the parents access to the child's medical records, much less to say no doctor, no nurse, no pharmacist, no government shall violate my child. And this is where, like Joe Shipley at Iowa says, medical rape. Yeah, this is a form of rape. It pierces the skin. As much as those deviants would like to have access to your children to do other things to them, this is just as horrific and deviant. It's a violent act against children. Do you need reasons to oppose SB 104, Virginia? Or do you need to get the hell out of the state like they're fleeing New York since they violated religious liberty there? Targeting Jews at first, now the Amish. Who would they not target? If you let them target one religious minority, what's to say they aren't going to come for you next? It was good news, bad. I told you it was a good news, bad news scenario today as I opened the show. I want you to be thinking very deeply about these things and decide how best to be an example for your kids or grandkids. How do you want to lead by example? Not just, I heard about this, and then go right back in 2020 to go, you know what? It's just too much to consider. I'm overwhelmed. My adrenals are burned out. I can't do it. Or as the millennials say, I can't even. Well, you can't even until you can't even say no to any mandate or dictate that they throw down your way that violates your body. Where do you draw the line and say, no, don't cross it? Defense of liberty, life, property. What's the ultimate property? You, your body, and your kids until the age of majority. And they want to target them before they're adults. When they're adults, they get to choose. But boy, until then, girl, until then, they don't want to wait. This is where it is going. And the roadmap is written. And I'm going to be presenting more on that this evening after the show, and hopefully we'll make that available to you. Hopefully it's not too shocking to you, but if it is, hey, so be it. It's time to wake up. It's 2020, y'all. Come on. We can't stay asleep and drugged on this while our children are stolen from us, or you are stolen from yourself because you said government's bigger than God. Don't believe it. I don't believe it. But the question is, will you live according to the beliefs you claim you have? Am I calling you out? That's up to you to decide. I'm just sharing what I've discovered in my personal beliefs and my passion about living free, about living spiritually, unencumbered by a secular government that would limit my ability to move about the earth cabin according to the edicts of spirit. The Holy Spirit, divine spirit, the ek, the sound current, whatever you call it, to direct me in my activity, to live a moral and upstanding life, to lead by example, to inspire others to reconnect to that which, well, from which they come. This is the Robert Scott Bell Show. This is the place for health, freedom, and healing liberty, tackling the tough subjects and sometimes being silly about it too, but sometimes we got to be serious as well. We'll see if we can lighten it up. I don't know when. Maybe when I bring Super Don into the mix, he'll make me laugh. I know it's a big task today, Super D. In the meantime, say thanks to our friends at Trinity School of Natural Health. We got a lot more healing to go with Trinity, and they got a lot of great programs I want you to plug into in the new year. We'll be right back. Okay, we're up.
It seems like every fitness program today offers you a lot of promises. You've seen the marketing, the fad diets, the secret pill, the magic programs, lose 100 pounds in 3 months. Unfortunately, most of those trends do very little to actually support your body or your health, and some of them are even harmful to your body. At Trinity, we look at fitness in a much more realistic and honest approach. Our Holistic Fitness Specialist program emphasizes a full body strategy for the fitness professional. We focus on whole body nutrition, proper exercise selection for the individual, and supplementation that is actually beneficial to the body and not toxic. In this course, you will learn the physiological benefits of exercise, breath work, and mindfulness, dysbiosis and the connection to weight gain, performance, and recovery, exercise selection, intensity, and frequency, condition-specific exercise recommendations, fitness-based nutrition and supplementation for performance and recovery, popular diet plans including the ketogenic diet and their applications, emotional components of health, and natural performance-enhancing strategies. Fitness is more than just muscle strength and endurance. It's about improving the fitness of the physical body as well as the intellectual and emotional health, your whole self, body, mind, and spirit. If you have any questions or feel like this is the right program for you, please email or call us today and get started on your journey towards transforming the world.
I know. Lighten up, man. It's the weekend. Super Don, I can hear you saying lighten it up. I don't know if you are actually, because as a producer, you're like, sometimes you say you got to be intense. You got to be straightforward and not hold back. And I'm warming up for tonight's presentation, I think. That's what's going on. Yeah.
In fact, it used to be, if you remember, on Fridays, we had a special Friday intro, and that was one of the part of the intro was,
yeah,
man, lighten up, man. It's Friday.
That's what I was hearing as I was realizing, oh my gosh, I did this on a Friday going into the weekend. I ruined everybody's weekend. And I'm not sorry. I think about how I want, what do I want to leave for my kids? What kind of world, what kind of, we all have to think about that, but who goes here? It's about leaving the campground a little cleaner, I suppose. But recognizing that the more we just kind of go along to get along, the worse it's going to be for our children and their children, as opposed to those standing on principle. Standing to say, you know what, you shall not cross this line because this is where my liberty begins and yours ends.
Like Gandalf the Grey, right? Mm-hmm. You shall not pass.
Yeah. What was it?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
What was the comment you said Stephen made, who's watching on YouTube right now?
He was talking about how we need to have a law that makes illegal laws illegal.
there ought to be a law. Well,
That's
listen.
right.
You know what? The more laws a society has, it tells you about the degradation of that society. And of course, if we've abandoned principle, then we need people telling us what to do and how to live. That's a problem. That's where I say, we're in a spiritual crisis. And Super D, you know me, I'm not talking about people's membership in a church synagogue. I'm talking about a connection, a living in a way that is directed by something that says, you know what, there's certain lines you don't cross. You don't violate people's rights to life, liberty, and property. It seems pretty basic, but that seems to be lost in much of our culture. And those of us that want to be left alone have been quiet for a long time because we don't just leave us alone. But by doing that, unfortunately, it's grown the tentacles of government to such a degree that now they're claiming ownership of our children. And even though I would give props to the Republicans over the Democrats right now on this particular issue, still, the fact that government is so large that this could happen, it doesn't mean the Republicans couldn't flip one day and they be the bad guys on this situation. The Democrats find religion in this sense. I mean, this is the thing. The danger is the centralizing of bureaucracy, to create a power structure that basically demeans our human existence by claiming or altering our identity and getting us to agree with that. And that's what all of these substandard ID laws are about. Getting you to convince yourself that you are something less than a spiritual being having human experiences, and basically subjecting yourself to all kinds of, in this case, in the United States, unconstitutional prohibitions or mandates. But they're unconscionable in the case of giving children the freedom to go, Mom and Dad, screw you. I'm a kid and I get to decide what it gets injected into my body because this adult with a license says I need it. It's hard to be funny right now, Super D. I'm looking for the funny in this.
We bombed a guy in Iraq. Is that funny?
Yeah, and there's that.
We'll have to talk about that maybe
another
next
time.
week after.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of wrapping my head around that.
Yeah.
Not sure what's going to happen with that. It's kind of concerning to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
all right, deep breath.
We'll talk
hyperventilate.
about. You want to talk about 5G?
All right, let's do it.
How about
all right.
5G?
Our friends from the Alliance for Natural Health, Protecting Natural Health, are a great group. I know Jonathan Emord has done a lot of work with them, Gretchen DeBow and all of those folks. We love you and appreciate you. Happy New Year. They continue to do great work, and they have an article called Flying Blind with 5G. Scientists are speaking out about the dangers of 5G, but government agencies are showing no signs of listening. Once again, you remove the ability to protect your integrity, and you turn that over to what? You turn it over to a centralized bureaucracy to protect you, like an agency. FTC, FCC, FDA, go on and on and on. EPA, they're the ones that are arbiters now. So if the government, if the bureaucratic oligarchy, if the alphabet soup agency says it's safe, you got to go, oh, okay. Nothing I can do. They say it's safe. Can't even sue the industry. I mean, there are ways to do it. We've seen it happen, basis of fraud, like with glyphosate and Roundup. So the courts are doing some good work there. But in many cases, a lot of direct suits against so-called polluters have been prevented because the EPA grants special status, special ability to pollute, or acknowledgement of false or phony science from industry itself. That it happens because we've granted the central government so much power that they are like, man, we're going to do whatever industry says, because when I leave this regulatory agency, I want a good job. I want a great retirement. And you leave FCC, FTC, you find this, go into industry, and it's just this revolving door. We've seen it with Big Pharma, of course. So this 5G story, pretty interesting. We've been covering it for a long time. And the ANH has been covering it as well. Launch of 5G. You see the commercials about 5G everywhere. The latest outrage in the story is the recent announcement from FCC, right, Federal Communications Commission, that they will reaffirm the radio frequency radiation exposure limits that were adopted in the 1990s based on research from the 1980s. These were derived from behavioral changes in rats exposed to microwave radiation that were established to protect humans from short-term heating risks. Yet the peer-reviewed literature since then is ignored. Nothing since the 80s. It stopped. Science stopped. That's it. Further, the FCC exposure limits only the limit of intensity or the frequency of the carrier waves, but ignores other aspects. Expert and Scientific American writes, along with the patterning and duration of exposure, certain characteristics of the signal, e.g. pulsing, polarization, increase the biologic and health impacts of the exposure. New exposure limits are needed which account for these differential effects. Not considered. FCC says go for it, y'all. 5G everywhere, y'all. Yep, you got nothing to say. So a group of hundreds of scientists around the world recently sent a letter to the UN and WHO, great global bureaucracies, warning of serious concerns regarding the ubiquitous and increasing exposure to EMF generated by electric and wireless devices. The scientists explain that EMF affects living organisms at levels well below most international guidelines, increasing cancer risk, all kinds of things, genetic damage, you name it. Others have pointed to 10,000 peer-reviewed studies demonstrating an array of negative health effects from EMF exposure. We can go on and on and on. And aside from turning a blind eye to the numerous health implications of launching 5G, FCC is undermining local democracy so towns and cities have less say. This is called preemption. We're preempting you. And you saw this happen with what? Labeling for GMOs. The DARK Act, Denying Americans the Right to Know, said, you know what? You can't on the state level make any laws that mandate labeling on a local level. The federal government is supreme. I beg to differ, of course, when you make laws at the federal level that are not, powers that you have granted by the Constitution, then they're null and void on our face. But how many states are pushing back on this yet? I know there are local municipalities, but they're going to look to overwrite those laws at the federal level. Question is, will we learn from the 10th Amendment Center and nullify them at the local level and the state level, where we have more power specific to when the feds make rules, laws, prohibitions, or mandates that are not in line with the Constitution, not made in pursuance with it? Granted, there are people out there that go, that's anachronistic. You sound like Ron Paul. That was back in the day. They didn't account for, the FCC and their wisdom in what? Protecting an industry, like the FDA protects an industry. Large, centralized bureaucracies, they are ripe for capture by industry. Even a lefty who I respect, like RFK Jr., has now acknowledged regulatory capture as a very real thing and that we have to defend property rights in order to push back. If these industries were made liable for the health effects of what they're unleashing on all of us, they'd be thinking twice or 10 times. The lawyers would say, you know what, we don't have the insurance to cover what's going to happen here. Of course, that would allow for a free market to decide whether 5G is even wanted or needed, because if we took a poll, not that I'm into polls and democracy, but Super Don, how many percentage-wise of people say they would say, I'm all for 5G because I need to talk to my toaster while I'm riding down the highway on the way home from work, right? I just don't think that's a big thing. Maybe I'm wrong.
Toaster's so 10 years ago. Reminds me of one time I was walking, I think it was like a Walmart or something.
Yeah.
And there was a crock pot that had an app you could download.
Mm-hmm.
And you could connect your crock pot on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, why do I need to connect to my crock pot? I guess you can check to see the temperature and you can adjust what happened to the day where you just put food in the crock pot, right? Mm-hmm. Now you got to connect to it on your phone. So yeah, everything's connected. I mean, you've got the refrigerators that have little cameras in them that will tell you when you're running low on eggs. And so, I mean, it's just, on the one hand, I'm kind of fascinated by the technology, but on the other hand, it's just kind of like, do we really need to have all this connectivity? Can't
we contain it to like a cartoon? And so that's awesome, but really, do we want that, need that? And what are the consequences of it? Not considered. Not considered. Who purchased, who lobbied? And it isn't just Congress, but lobbying the oligarchy itself, the FCC. Jonathan Emord has talked about that. It's not about lobbying your Congress critter necessarily, because they've already acquiesced and turned it over to the oligarchy, and they go, whatever they say goes. I can write them a letter. Your congressman will write the FCC a letter, and that'll go over like a lead balloon. I'm like, okay. You happy now? And then they'll tell their constituents, look, I wrote a letter. Bunch of spineless cowards, unwilling to stand on principle. What the Constitution defines as the authority of Congress. Again, this comes to the controversy, by the way, of kinetic action, taking out this bad guy in Iraq. And the controversy is like Democrat or Republican. This has been going on since after World War II, where there's been no declaration of war according to the Constitution in the People's House. And they have turned it over to the executive branch, the president, to basically say and do whatever. Now, some of you might be going, yeah, that's awesome that he did that, and it might be a good thing to take the guy out. Maybe. But, of course, it violates basic concepts of separation of powers. Kinetic action is a declaration of war, undeclared, and you could make argument that if you want to impeach Trump, that would be an impeachable offense. And don't get mad at me. I'm talking outside of who it's Trump or not Trump. You could have impeached Obama. You could have impeached any president that engaged in war actions without a declaration. And they go, well, authorization to use force. One of these slides I'm going to bring out today, later in my lecture, again, we'll see if we can make it available, is that you got to look out for emergencies. Super Don, you know this. It's an emergency. In an emergency, you're like, whatever goes, let's do it. It's an emergency. Now, when it comes to constitutionally limited government, it's not a good thing. When they declare an emergency, the rule of law doesn't exist. In an emergency situation, the rule of necessity kicks in. What is the rule of necessity? It knows no law. It knows no limitation. The Constitution, a mere parchment that shall not infringe upon our need to do what we deem to be necessary because it's an emergency. Because God said, follow my commandments unless it's an emergency. And then you could be debauchery. You know what I'm saying? This is.
Is there an emergency clause in there somewhere?
I don't recall the emergency escape clause
Yeah.
there. But this is what happens.
That's funny.
This is why we're seeing this nonsense occur with mandated vaccines or undeclared wars. And Trump's not the first guy to do it. Hillary would have been all over it, even worse. I guarantee you she would have. But if you're on principle, you go, hey, there's an issue. We might agree that the guy was a bad guy, maybe need to be taken out even. It's just the way to do it. Now, if you could say, I hear Jonathan Emord here say, Super Don, can you hear him say, if there was a clear and present danger, they knew that there was an imminent attack on Americans you could go, all right, there's an authority to wage war. But at that point, all right, we've done that. Let's go back to Congress and go, hey, here's the deal. And this is not about Democrat or Republican, love Trump or hate Trump. It's not about that.
No, and listen, they've used that already, and it's been BS.
Mm-hmm.
They've done the shenanigans on the whole. Oh, there's an imminent attack. There's weapons of mass destruction, or
right.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, how they find those, right?
Right, and so that's already been kind of used, and so listen, people don't trust government anyway.
Yeah.
So once you've already tricked people, they're going to trust you even less, even with Trump in there.
Yeah,
it's one of those things you have to kind of give it the side eye and go, I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Hopefully this doesn't have some kind of blowback, but unfortunately, just about everything we do, especially when it comes to the Middle East, ends up having blowback of some sort.
Sure.
So.
As I've said over the years too, I've argued like my mom's experience growing up in Palestine, then Israel, and before that, it was no problem. The people got along. Jews, Arabs, Christians. They all, went to the market. They went to the coffee. And then suddenly the globalists got involved, mucked up the works, because there's an agenda. There's profit in war, and the bankers and those behind them, they profit from the winners and the losers. They don't really care, as long as they're still the bankers. Now, I am not getting into Jewish conspiracies here because, again, I have Jewish heritage. It's like, I'm not in on that club. Any Jewish person I've ever met wasn't in on that club. I mean, that gets to an elitist thing. And I think it's a red herring or a straw man argument to some degree, because most of the people that claim to be Jewish are not in that club. It's completely something different. That could be a convenient scapegoat scenario. And of course, the Jews have been scapegoated throughout history for, that's part of it too. When we talk about the gold star on the real ID and how eerie that is, eerily reminiscent of gold stars in previous generations. And symbolism is not lost on me. It shouldn't be lost on you. They love to throw that in our faces. Look, we tricked them again. Look, we're throwing it right out there, the gold star on the real ID. They won't notice. And if they do, they're like, so what? Anybody that says it will be dismissed as a conspiratorialist. And, you're bringing up a Nazi thing. Everybody says Nazi and it has no meaning anymore. You see how this game is played? I know how they're doing it. I know what they're doing and why. The question is, what do you want to do about it? What do you take drugs? Go back to sleep? Or try to establish a land here in America, United States, that defends liberty, that doesn't trounce upon it, doesn't trample upon it, that defends the ultimate minority, the individual, and his or her religious beliefs, which may differ from yours or mine, as long as they violate nobody else's beliefs, including yours and mine. Seems pretty simple and straightforward, but I guess, again, people are lost on that. So, Good news, bad news. This is a very interesting show, Super D. Pretty intense stuff coming through.
It has been pretty intense for a Friday. I have to agree with you on that.
Must be the clothes. Makes me all serious like.
Makes you all serious and stuff.
I need a some kind of funny image on my clothes, a cartoon or something. That would make it lighten it up. But,
Well, we got just a few minutes left here in the hour. I want to point out something here that was brought to my attention by our loyal listener, Ron A. This morning. She sent me this link. She says this has been going around all over Twitter. And so I was looking at this, and I showed this to you this morning.
Okay.
And there's this WordPress website. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but apparently it's been making the rounds. Somebody put together this website called All About Anti-Vaxxers. And they put together, it's a list. On the website, it's called AV Name Check.
Okay.
And this person went to the trouble of grabbing this is a huge list of people from all over the place. Looks like a lot of people in Australia.
I wonder, is this guy is from Australia? Because most of the initial list is Australia, but they then go to America, and of course they tell you Andrew Wakefield, and he lives in Austin, Texas. They start picking out. It's like doxing people. They've got our friend Ginger Taylor in Maine. People we know.
Larry Cook.
Dr. Sherry Tenpenny.
Sherry Tenpenny. They've got like several people on here. And basically what they're trying to do is list this here. And the guy says here, he says, this is a list of social media trolls who are rabidly anti-vaccine and in my opinion should be called out as child neglectors or inciting said child neglect. And so this person has put together this thing here. They're saying that what they're doing may warrant civil legal action. And they break it down into like people.
This is like the vaccine SS. It's like the Hitler Youth kind of concept of like, let's expose these people. And there are people that are being like on Twitter that are doing this. And they're contacting their employers. Do you know that your employee is anti-vaccine? Which now they've crossed the line, I believe. They're not going, hey, you better, it had nothing to do with their work, their employee status or work, but it's like, hey, we disagree with this person. We think they're reprehensible because of their views on vaccines. You should do something about it as their employer. Trying to get them fired. Or let's say, any number of things. I mean, and here this guy, and if we can find out who this is, we should let everybody know who it is. He says, note that this list does not under any circumstances incite or approve of violence against those listed. But what are you saying if you perceive these are neglectful people against children? You're telling us that they're doing horrible things to children. Do you think that doesn't incite a violent rhetoric, much less maybe an action against these people? It could. Sure, it could.
Did you notice on the list here, as you go down here, Donald Trump is on there?
Donald Trump is on there? Wow. Do they say where he lives?
So, let's see what it says here. Donald Trump, New York, it says.
He moved out of New York.
He's got Florida. Presently. This list, I think, is a few months old. So, hey, listen, it's gotten under some people's skin. One of the things you noticed right off the bat, and I tried to look into, is like, there's nowhere on this website you can find out.
Yeah, who is this guy? He's like anonymous.
So this person is going after these people on this list as being people that are hiding, right? Yet, where's your name, sir? Ma'am, whoever you are, you don't seem to be putting yourself out there as the crusader here.
Is this a dude in somebody's basement? I think this is what it looks like.
This
is what he looks like, clearly. Whoever this is. Bring me a hot pocket, Mom. I'm in your basement, but he's being a badass on Facebook or wherever with his WordPress site.
Well, I'm just out of curiosity, I just thought it was ironic that this person is talking about people that are hiding, and then this person does not put themselves out there for you to see very easily. So I dug around a little bit, and apparently there's a Facebook page that's associated with the website.
Okay.
And I just sent you the link. This is to the about section of the Facebook page, and it shows the team members of the people that are running the page. It's two different profiles of the same person.
Philip Gluass?
Gluass. Yeah.
What a name. Phil Gluass. Gluass? Really bad. I mean, if you're going to pick that name, that's not a good name.
Yeah. Now it doesn't say that this person is associated and runs the Facebook page, so they're at least a part of what's going on.
Can we click on this?
If you look,
he does look like that guy in the basement with a beard. Is that the guy though? We don't know.
I don't know. Like I said, if you just put yourself out there, we wouldn't have to go looking, because I'm just curious. It's like, who is this person that's out there trying to dox all of these people for having opinions about...
He's in Australia, this guy, so that makes sense.
That makes sense. Makes sense. But apparently...
Does anybody in Australia know this dude? Philip Gluass.
Gluass, yes.
All right. Well, listen, if you're going to dox people, we're going to do it too.
His opinion is, if you don't vaccinate your child without a good proven medical reason, you are guilty of child endangerment.
Yeah, of course, he's a vaccine injury denialist then.
Yeah.
Clearly. He's one of those. And,
anyway. Anyway. So, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, when I was looking at this website, it's not even like a website. It's like a WordPress website. And so we're probably giving it more attention than it needs. And I don't think there's anybody that's on that list, that has anything really to worry about at this point. But I think the more attention we give it, probably that's probably what he's looking for at this point. He's been around. The website's been around since 2014, so it's not something that popped up right now.
Okay. Well, listen, when we come back at the top of the hour break here, we've got Dr. Frank King at the bottom of the hour. We're going to hit some, how do you maintain the resolutions into the new year? Also, we're going to talk more about adrenal burnout, how to know if your adrenal burnout is real, that it's happened. We're going to get to that. He's going to share with us techniques. He tells me he's going to give away a free ebook, but you are going to be asked to call Dr. Frank King or King Bio, Dr. King's, to get it. So we'll heads up. We're going to give you a phone number when he's on that you're going to, if you don't call today, fine, but whenever you do, because it's sensitive information. They don't want it out on the web, but they'll give you access to it if you call them. So we'll get to that a little later in the show. But to start out hour 2, I'm going to show you what goes beyond Real ID. What's the next phase beyond Real ID? Yeah, it involves Bill the Terminator Gates. Stick with us. Lots more healing to go on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Back after this, go to robertscottbell.com.
The Robert Scott Bell Show. The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Have you ever watched a movie with superheroes and villains? If so, you already understand the science of drinking hydrogen-enriched water and how to unlock true health. Allow me to explain. In our bodies, we have a natural struggle between superheroes and villains, with molecular hydrogen being the superhero and oxidative stress the villain. So how does knowing that give you the tools to unlock true health? Your body is naturally designed to fight oxidative stress through specific bacteria in the gut that creates hydrogen on their own. Pretty awesome, right? So why does this matter? Well, in most people, the hydrogen-creating bacteria is gone, and cancer and disease soon follow. So the real question is, why aren't we trying to fix this every day? Well, the answer is simple. It's hard. Even the most healthy of individuals who biohack take months or years to achieve this balance. But how do we get there without taking months or even years? After years of study and development, we discovered and designed the perfect technology that made it all possible. We call this technology Echo H2 Water. Within minutes of drinking hydrogen-rich water from our Echo Hydrogen water machines, you are back in control, balanced, and feeling amazingly hydrated and healthy. Having your own Echo Hydrogen water machine is kinda like having your own team of superheroes on call, always available to fight the villains in your body. Pretty cool, right? But don't just take our word for it. Get your Echo H2 water machine today and quickly bring your body into balance with hydrogen.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information.
I've learned so much from him.
It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
Just so you know, we're not flying blind here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. We got it going on, and particularly with that flying blind with 5G, I just want to remind you of the synergy, science, capacity connection with the key technology. This is the key shield, and it's always around me. We got the whole house unit, and I know that some people have said, I'm annoyed with you because you keep talking about it, and I can't, quote unquote, afford it. First of all, stop. The moment you say, I can't something, stop it. Stop saying it. Stop believing it. And it may be you look in your bank account and say, here's the proof, Robert, if you have a bank account. I'm not disputing numbers. This is not what this is about. It's about flying in the face of the gifts of spirit that are trying to be given unto you at every moment of every day. And you spit in the face of God when you say, I can't. Yep. Follow my commandments unless it's an emergency. Well, it's an emergency. My bank account is low. No, listen, if you perceive you need it, talk to your creator and talk about it. Pray about it. And I'm not saying you're going to be, it just appears. I'm just saying that be open to the things that you need, because I believe Spirit God wants us to have everything we need. But if you don't believe you need it, you're going to go, I can't afford it. And there are things that I have a lot of things I don't have the money for, but I'm like, I'm at least not going to be so arrogant to my creator, to God, to say, I perceive that I can't have it because, no. Like, you know what? If I need it, if it's supposed to happen, I'm not going to be the obstacle. I'll do my level best not to be. Please help me to see beyond my patterns of behavior, my patterns of belief that deny me the things you want me to have, whether it be the healing. Right? You say you want to be healed, but you only want to be healed if it comes in the guise of a doctor with a stethoscope and a license. And God's trying to say, Spirit's trying to say, you know what? That's not the guy or gal that's going to deliver what you say you want. Let go of your preconceived notions about how Spirit will deliver to you that which you have a perceived need. Now, we might be wrong about our needs. We might misinterpret them. But don't be the arbiter and block of, I know better than you, God. I can't. Just let that part of it go and allow the flow to come back through. And if it's right, if you need it, it'll somehow manifest for you. I'm not saying how, I don't know. But I've seen that happen too many times in my life that all I ask you, it's not my commandment. Just don't be the obstacle. Don't be the obstacle. All right, what do we got to do? Be the obstacle for Bill Gates. Yes, I know. Check this article out as we lead into what goes beyond real ID in vaccine mandates, right? Tying in biometric data, social security numbers through your ID status and saying you can't get on a plane unless you're fully vaccinated. What about your kids? Your kids don't need ID, right? Technically, they can fly without it until they're 18. Minors, they don't need one. So how are they going to track ID status of your kids? Well, Bill Gates to the rescue. MIT is developing a new tattoo ID. So you'll be able to be checked, scanned for vaccinations. And of course, that goes beyond real ID ultimately when the chips are embedded. This is another way of embedding chips in a sense. We will tattoo you with needles and we will embed in your skin something that we can scan. The invisible tattoo accompanying the vaccine in a pattern made up of minuscule quantum dots, tiny semiconducting crystals that reflect light, that glows under infrared light. The pattern and vaccine gets delivered into the skin using high-tech dissolvable micro needles. They're made of a mixture of polymers and sugar. In other words, they found a way to found a covert way to embed the record of a vaccination directly into a patient's skin rather than documenting it electronically or on paper or tied to your ID. And their low-risk tracking system could greatly simplify the process of maintaining accurate vaccine records, especially on a larger scale. So they now acknowledge that they can tattoo you with a vaccine record using nanotechnology and light-emitting particles somehow interacting with scanners. How is it not obvious where they're taking the beyond real ID scenario? The real ID is just a step. They already have proof of concept that they can do these dissolving microneedles that leave a permanent impression that can't be seen by the naked eye, but can be detected by scanning technology, probably cell phones, apps. You want to get on that airplane? You don't even need the real ID. We got you. Let's scan. Oh, there's nothing in here. I'm sorry. Nothing scanning. You haven't got it. Sorry. Go home. Even if we allow you to get in a car, good luck with that. You're not getting on public transport. Yo, this is not a science fiction. Maybe it'll happen one day in the distance. Oh, if we know, this is happening now, y'all. The technology is there. This is part of what I'm going to reveal tonight. There's even more of where this is headed if you don't stand up and say no. Like your 2-year-old. This is the good thing about a 2-year-old. No. You get annoyed, I know. You must learn from your 2-year-old. No, we're not going down that road. And I like some of the memes that I've seen in Super Don. You may have seen some of these, like some of our lovable parent listeners, part of the Robert Scott Bell Show crowd. They're posting memes like me after the real ID vaccine mandate, and they're on little tricycles getting around, like you got to find another way. Now, better than that would be to get on your tricycle or whatever you got down to the state capitol and start interacting with your state legislators to push back on real ID, much less this whole technology, which is horrific. Now, if it exists and you volunteer for it, okay, there's another scenario happening there, but that's not their intent. This is about mandatory participation, accepting. Let's see, how far can we push it? Argentina, already in force. European Union, proof of concept by 2021 or 2022. Rolled out shortly thereafter. United States, no, I know. The Real ID Act doesn't say mandatory vaccinations are tied to it. But guess what? The head of the Department of Homeland Security gets to make up the rules. And what did I say earlier? The rule of necessity knows no law. Oh, it's a measles outbreak. Oh, it's Ebola. Suddenly it's arriving on our shores, and we've just fast-tracked FDA a new Ebola vaccine that we claim to be 100% effective. And you believe that? Folks, we've come a long way a long way from our spiritual identity. We've relinquished it to a pharmaceutical church-run government. I can't even say it's a secular government. For those of you who are very religious, you understand that concept, secular government. This is not me advocating for what is it called? What is it called? A theocratic government? Super Don, help me out here. It's not theology, it's theocracy. Sorry, I got it. Thank you. Mind meld. I'm not arguing for a theocracy. There's also not a separation of your spiritual beliefs from who you are just because you enter government. Now, that doesn't mean you can make your dogma the dogma of the secular government. But the point is, what's already happened is the dogma of a secular church, if you will, a godless church, the pharmaceutical church, the church of pharmaceutical mysticism, has basically engulfed and devoured the Democratic Party with very few exceptions. As we see these increasingly draconian mandates targeting your children and you for needle insertion or multiple needle insertion in invisible, dissolvable needles that leave permanent marks that they can scan after the fact, so you can no longer claim to be compliant with their vaccine mandate policies. We'll know because we'll scan you. Yeah, man, this is an Orwellian show if I've ever done one. But this is what is manifesting. The technology without consciousness, without spiritual connection, does horrific things to other humans, much less animals, but it treats us like animals. It marks us like beasts in the field. I'm not exaggerating. Here's the technology. It's right here. Where are they targeting? Check this article out again. In areas where paper vaccination cards are often lost or do not exist at all, and electronic databases are unheard of, this technology would enable the rapid and anonymous detection of patient vaccination history to ensure that every child is vaccinated. Every adult too, folks. They're coming for you. What are you prepared to do in defense of your bodily autonomy? Oh, no, we can't do that, Robert. That's really? You're going to cower in fear? You're going to behave like a sheep? You're going to be injected like a sheep or a moo cow. Herd immunity again. Community immunity, screw that. It's herd immunity. You're part of the herd. Bill Gates requested this himself. Bill Gates of hell, requested this himself. That this would be done. Tattooing you. How obvious does it have to get that we're talking Revelation and the mark of the beast? Have you already taken the mark? And is there a way, this is a question I'll get a lot, is there a way to get rid of it? What if you've accepted the mark? You didn't know, in ignorance or fear, you just went along. You're like, oh my gosh, that's the mark. What do I do now? Stop using it. Yep, stop using it. That's too much to consider, I know, but I have to say it. At a certain point, you stop using it yourself, and you say, not on my child, not in my child, and you stand in the way. I know it's a lonely place as an individual to stand in the way like that. But you do it, and then somebody else does it, somebody else does it. Pretty soon, you've transformed the terrain. Now, where are you going to make the stand? People are leaving New York in droves. They're leaving California in droves. Some have gone from New York to New Jersey, and now they're making a stand there. And they had a victory, maybe temporary, we don't know, in New Jersey in December when they pushed back against the inevitability, which we thought would be of removing religious opt-outs to the vaccine church, to the sacrament in the vaccine church. We'll see where it goes in January. They're intending to bring it back and pass it. But then where? If it doesn't work to protect it or prevent it from happening there, then where? If you think you've lost the battle there, like in New York, get out, find a place where you can stand the ground that has been lost. And remember, folks, this is a globalist attempt to take over the United States. If it hasn't already been taken over, then the globalist attempt to control and own you and your children and their offspring as well. Tattoo you. I don't know what the Rolling Stones said about this. Didn't we have a quote from a Rolling Stones song yesterday, Super Don, that was actually kind of interesting? Remember that?
Yeah, there was something that we were saying that we were like thinking about the Rolling Stones song "Gimme Shelter," and the lyrics in the song says, "Rape, murder is just a shot away."
Yeah,
it's just a shot away. I think it was we were referring to a story out of Australia talking about how the next measles epidemic is just a sniff away. Right?
Yeah.
When in reality, maybe it is just a shot away, right?
All right. Well, at the risk, once again, of being banned in Brazil, I think it's on Facebook we get banned in Brazil, isn't it? On Facebook Live? Yeah.
Yes.
When I play this, we got to, because there's a question coming through. We got to answer it.
Excuse me. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
All right, question of the day time here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. We got it going on, and let's see if I can bring it up here on the show notes. There it is in the show notes. And you'll see to the right-hand column, you'll see all the supporters that we have, including Dr. King, 30-year anniversary, Dr. Frank King. I can't believe we used to have a 20-year. It's been 10 years. Man, this is great. Dr. King coming up momentarily. Question of the day from Carl, organic gardener from Southeast Texas. Robert's nagging hand or wrist injury. If it's a tendon or ligament issue, I would recommend prolozone therapy. I have had tendonitis issues in both elbows from lifting weights. I had a prolozone treatment in each of them, one 6 years ago and one 4 years ago, and both immediately went away and never have come back. I'm over 50, so I'm in the same age group as RSB. I've never heard you guys talk about prolotherapy before. Might be something that could help Robert, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are regarding it. Carl. Now, Super Don, I asked you to check this out, and I think it is what we were talking about with Ty Bollinger and his son Bryce with his pitching elbow. Here, look at it right now. Prolozone therapy says it's a non-surgical procedure to eliminate or drastically reduce pain by facilitating the body's own natural ability to heal itself. All right, sounds great. It's derived from the Latin word prolix, which means to proliferate, regenerate, and rebuild. And it involves injections of your own cells. So it's painful to get there. We talked about it with Ty, about his son, Bryce. And do you remember that, Super Don?
I do, although there is a difference between prolotherapy and PRP, because in prolotherapy, they inject, because I'm just looking at this right now, it's like dextrose or sugar water, and it's injected to create inflammation in the painful tendon. PRP, they inject your own plasma. So that would be the difference between the two.
Well, and the thing is that Carl is concerned about is I do not have any pain associated with the injury where I had a spiral fracture in one of the bones of my hand from a bike wreck. And I have complete use of it. I'm hitting the heavy bag. I'm hitting the speed bag. I'm riding the bike again. So it's not complaining about that. What I said is energetically and I think lymphatically that I sense, even now I look at my hand, my right and my left hand, and they're a little bit different size, that I have a lymphatic stasis a little bit. And I think it stems from the energy of whatever happened there that I haven't fully addressed, because I'm not dealing with pain, although I will acknowledge that there's some elbow pain that's not related technically, but I believe it's related because it's associated with the lack of movement out the cells, what we say, cleansing. It's a lymphatic issue. Maybe I'll bring that up with Dr. King too, as we're going to talk about adrenal burnout as well. But, if I'm dealing with skeletal pain, of course, I've got Rus toxicodendron. I've got Ruta. I've got a lot of different remedies that can address that. Primarily among the things that I do, of course, is promote liver health. Get the liver draining more efficiently. Stay hydrated. Things like that. I'm moving. I'm bouncing. I'm doing things. But there's something, yes, I agree, I'm missing. And it's like, I want to be my own doctor. I'm stubborn that way. I like to figure stuff out. But I'm not opposed to the suggestions like Carl. I'm not, and I appreciate it. It shows the concern and the compassion y'all have, even for little old me. And so I'm open to it. But I haven't, investigated. I think I need to have like some kind of lymphatic massage maybe the brushing, other things like that. And like I said, I'll talk to Dr. King, too, about some homeopathic remedies and things if he's brought out his lymphatic drainage in addition to the total body detox that we just gave away yesterday. So we got that coming up. So,
yeah, there's always new things, that we're not familiar with. And I hadn't heard of this. Like you were mentioning the PRP. I'm familiar with that. There's actually an ND here in town that does the PRP.
Mm-hmm.
The prolozone or the prolotherapy was somewhere different. I hadn't heard about that, where they inject dextrose and it creates inflammation at the point where it's injected, and then stimulates healing.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of injections. I'm not. I've had too many. Let's just say it that way. 10 plus years of allergy injections, it's enough. So if I can do it without injections, I'm going to do it without injections. Just saying. I have, what was that word? Trypanophobia? Remember that? Fear of needles?
Fear of needles.
Remember that?
Who does that? I mean, who enjoys getting stuck with a needle?
I guess there are masochists.
If you're a big fan of that might be kind of weird. But
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess, there's something for everybody out there.
No.
So, wow. How's it going in YouTube land? Everybody having fun in Facebook Live and Twitter, Periscope, and all that stuff? Y'all watching? Remember, you can go to robertscottbell.com, and I hope that you'll sign up for email alerts. If I show you what to do there for our new listeners or viewers, you just click on the listen link. And it was funny. My wife was out taking my daughter up. She went sledding yesterday, I think. Halfway through the stream, she had to cut it off, and she called it back, and they said, you need to call a new number. So I called Super Don. I said, Super Don, they changed the listen line number the day she was listening. Did you confirm that both of those numbers work?
Last night, both of them worked.
I wonder if it's if one gets overloaded or something, this number here. We should list both. I don't know.
And over on TalkStream Live, it still lists the 701 number, so
right.
I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
A lot of ways to listen in, so... All right. Well, let's see here. Anything else? Back to the show notes. Show you where we've been, where we're going. And, of course, all of our supporters out there from Key Technologies, Better Way Health to get your beta-glucan, and including the Beta Kids, Modulate Immunity, Stockton Aloe 1, the Haley Nutrition, the raw aloe that I use, Kratom Corner, Dr. King, 30 years. We're going to talk about adrenal burnout momentarily. Trinity School of Natural Health. You can get a free ounce of Kratom from our friend John Bush. Go to the Health Ranger store and get discounts there. Through the Robert Scott Bell Show. Click on that link, that banner. There's the book. There's choosetobehealthy.com. Support us on Patreon. And do we have a new Patreon supporter? Is Carl a new Patreon supporter, Super Don? Is it possible?
Carl. Yeah, I believe so. Carl. Yeah, he's the one that did the... Carl, organic gardener from Southeast Texas. I'm almost positive he's one of our brand new Patreons.
Well, Carl, regardless, we're grateful for you that you would write in and that you did. But if you're a Patreon, even double that. We got Echo Water. We also got CBD oil. Plus CBDoil.com. RSB 15 gets you 15% off. And then we got the Healing Revolution with my good buddy, Dr. Frank King. And we're going to talk about, adrenal burnout. How do you know? He's going to run through a test that you can do at home related to that. And he'll also provide an ebook on the subject. We're going to talk about it, and we'll talk about how to access it, how to get it. It's not going to be easy. You're going to actually have to pick up a phone and call Dr. King's to find out about it. I'm serious.
They're not going to make it easy for you. You got to work for it.
Right. So let's see if I can get, I see if Dr. King's there. Yeah. So let's take a break here, and we'll bring Dr. King into the mix a little bit early. I'm going to say thanks to our friends at Synergy Science for the key technology that I mentioned. We talked about an EMF issue, and then also say thanks as well to Dr. Frank King, who has provided homeopathic remedies for us for a long time, and I want to make sure that he's provided them to you as well. So stick with us. Lots more healing to go on the Robert Scott Bell Show. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Frank King, and I want to share with you about the many benefits of homeopathy. For over 200 years, homeopathy has been used by physicians and veterinarians to treat hundreds of conditions worldwide. Homeopathy is supported by hundreds of scientific studies, texts, materia medicas, repertories for both people and pets. Homeopathy has passed the most valuable test of all, and that is the test of time. The majority of drugs today are being pulled from the marketplace due to the discovery of the dangerous side effects where the risks outweigh the benefits. Today, homeopathic remedies are standing strong as the safe, natural medicines for both people and pets, with no side effects, no known negative drug interactions, no risks of overdose, no addictions, no contraindications, and no problems. That's why I created Dr. King's Natural Medicine as your logical first choice.
Today, we live in an omnipresent cloud of charged particles emitted by electronic devices, electromagnetic fields, WLAN, and radio waves. These particles penetrate our bodies and heat the water in our body tissues. Recent scientific studies have shown that this particle flux not only heats the cells in our bodies as if we were in a microwave oven, but damages them as well. At Key Technologies, we want to protect you from the negative effects of such particles, so we have developed the Key Home Cell and other products. The Key Home Cell creates a protective field that works like a filter, intercepting any dangerous particles before they can enter your body. Here we have a partial look at the inner workings of the Key Home Cell. The Key Home Cell generates a charge exchange between the water tubes, thereby discharging free electrons and releasing them into the room. Within 24 hours, the Key Home Cell creates a torus field. The free electrons formed in the torus use their negative charge to bind to the positively charged harmful particles, thereby rendering them harmless to you. The torus field has an effective range of 16.4 feet above and below, and 24.6 feet around the device. The torus field created by the Key Home Cell is transmitted and provides you with protection through the walls of your home. Not only humans and animals are shielded from harmful radiation, but plants and food too. Whether mobile radio waves or WLAN, any particles that come within the torus field can no longer cause any harm to you or your family. The Key Home Cell provides you with all-around protection, allowing you to communicate with absolute peace of mind when using your cell phone or any other electronic devices. The Key Home Cell's free electrons are transmitted into the water through the torus field and repairing the water structure that was destroyed by radiation particles. Water regains its ideal vibrating hexagonal grid structure. The difference is easy to taste and can be proven with laboratory testing. This type of perfect hexagonal water structure is found in fresh spring and healing water and has also been seen in snowflakes. The same effect happens with our food, which also contains water. The Key Home Cell greatly reduces radiation exposure from cell phones, laptops, WLAN transmitters, mobile terminals, and other sources of radiation. The Key Home Cell drastically reduces the thermal stress on your body tissue. It is very fast and very easy. With the Key Home Cell, you will experience a new quality of well-being within your home and more life energy without any unhealthy exposure to radiation.
All right, y'all, here we go. Healing Revolution time on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Dr. Frank King, good friend of mine for many, many years. Naturopath, chiropractor, homeopath. He's got so much going on, and he's written the book, The Healing Revolution, and more. He's provided techniques, hands-on healing techniques for years as well. And I hope you're already plugged into the Dr. King's remedies. We are going to give an opportunity for you to have a free ebook today, and I'll tell you how, but it'll be involving a phone number that you'll have to call during the week. But for now, let's welcome into the new year, the Healing Revolution, and my good buddy, Dr. Frank King. There you are, Dr. King.
Welcome, Robert. It's always a pleasure, man.
It looks like we got a little bit of a delay going between us. I apologize for that. Again, sometimes the Wi-Fi technologies are slower than I would like, but I know that we wanted to talk a little bit about the adrenal burnout. I want to say thank you first for the total body detox. We were just we were able to give away one from last month, yesterday, to one of our lucky, loyal, lovable listeners. And today we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite topics with you, this adrenal burnout issue. It's not a fantasy; it's a real thing. But how do you measure it? How do you determine it? How do you identify it? These are the things that are still a mystery to much of modern medicine, but you know how to do it.
Robert, we've been treating hypoadrenia over 4 years and learned a lot over those years. One of the keys we have found most effective is what we've created called adrenal burnout. It's a formulation that deals with helping restore adrenal glands. It's not a stimulate like that people use for adrenal problems. You can take this before you go to bed and actually sleep. It restores a fried nervous system, your adrenal functions. So you'll sleep better at night. You'll have more energy during the day. Adrenals have become such a huge problem. Back in the 80s, we've seen about 80% fatigue at some level. We see 90 percentiles of people actually have some level of fatigue going on in our bodies, where fatigue becomes number one symptom in the world today. To address this, because not only does adrenal burnout or hypoadrenia or adrenal fatigue names for the same thing, not only does it cause, but it actually breaks down our body to a level where our immune system becomes weakened, where we become more, our emotions become, we see that affecting us at every level. So we create hormones that create our pro and anti-inflammatory control.
Dr. King, I apologize. I got
inflammation in balance. Anybody that's having inflammation, your adrenals are working overtime, and those adrenals burn out over time.
Dr. King, I got to interrupt here because I think our connection has adrenal burnout. I'm getting like every third word, and I know I want your words, which I perceive to have great value for my listeners, for everybody out there. I want them to absorb it. I want them to have access to the ebook as well. And if you would be so kind, if you're not too busy a week from this Friday to do the Healing Revolution, because I can't explain why this is happening today, but I don't want to miss out on the value of what you're about to deliver. And it's just not coming through like it should. And I think the technology gods are like going, not this week. If you have flexibility to do it next week, can we revisit? Now I see his lips moving, but I can't hear.
We're on, Robert.
We're on? Okay.
Certainly.
All right, Dr. King, my love to you and your wife and all of the family and the whole Dr. King's team there in Asheville, North Carolina. Again, this is not what we had planned today, but sometimes the technology gods have other ideas, and maybe the people that need to hear the adrenal burnout situation live are going to have to wait a week, or maybe those that aren't here will get it next week. So we'll do the Healing Revolution next week with Dr. Frank King based on that. So best laid plans. Thanks, Dr. King. You take care. Love to the whole family, and we'll talk again real soon. All right. So with that, I'm looking at, I will say this, based on what he was planning to do, including the free download of an ebook that he can't post. That means it's really hot. It's really good. The phone number I use to reach Dr. King and King Bio is 800-543-3245. I know they have another one listed. That's the one I use. It still works. 800-543-3245. Let them know that you weren't able to hear the entire interview because there was technical stuff, but you heard Robert mention the ebook on this subject, and there's a lot more to it than we would have time to cover today anyway. So take advantage of that and reach out to King Bio. They're technically 2:34. They're still open, but I want you to pay attention to the rest of the show before you call them. If you want to, you can call them now, 800-543-3245, and we'll get them back on. Super Don, that was kind of a strange scenario there I didn't account for, but I guess there are times that remotes don't work even in mainstream network television where you just have to go, we got to move on.
It happens. The technology gods sometimes laugh at us when we attempt to do things. So
so
it happens. So
complete. Now we can goof off. We don't have anything that we have to do anymore at this point, unless we talk adrenal burnout. I can share one adrenal burnout story if you want from years ago for new listeners.
Sure.
Okay.
Tell us, Robert. Tell us.
Y'all want to hear the story? Okay. Back in the day, in my early years of traversing the country with hardly the use of an ID. Back in the early 90s or mid 90s. Remember back when you didn't have to show an ID and anybody could go to the gate? It was like so casual, right? Imagine that. We lived. And I was in Georgia at the time, and I would travel to all over the country, sometimes all over the world, but I would travel to California sometimes from Georgia, straight nonstop flight into LAX or whatever. And there was this one trip that I had scheduled, Super Don, and maybe you'll remember this, that I was not very experienced in traveling yet, the way I had to become. And I had scheduled an early flight out, like a 7 a.m. flight out of the East Coast time zone, which is like 4 a.m. out of the Pacific time zone. So obviously you're up at 4 in the morning to get to a 7 a.m. flight. So you're up all night for West Coast time. I fly to the West. I'm met with a rep that picks me up, takes me out into the high desert up above Los Angeles. I think it was, I got to think of the city up there in the high desert where they have the Skunk Works, not far from that. Palmdale, Lancaster? Yeah, Palmdale, Lancaster. And so I'm scheduled to do a public event at a health food store in Palmdale, Lancaster area. Nice. Cheryl was her name, I think. And so I'm feeling good despite the long day. But by the time I start the lecture, it's like 7 o'clock Pacific time, which is 10 o'clock by my body clock East Coast time. This was not a good plan. I had an equivalent of staying up all night, traveling all day, and I'm starting to give a lecture to a large group in this store in California. And I'm supposed to be the picture of health, talking about the virtues of living organic and healthy stuff and homeopathy. And I'm like, I'm leaning up against the door frame to give this lecture. I'm not kidding you. I'm like, and one of the people that worked at the store said, "Are you all right? Is everything okay?" I was like, "No, I just realized what a goof I was to think I could just stand up and do this thing. But can we give you something? Can we get you?" Well, there's the exhaustion remedy that I didn't travel with, like the dummy that I was on that trip. Again, this was years ago. I wasn't all prepared like I am now. And she grabs the formula that included the homeopathic remedy arsenicum album, arsenicum. And arsenicum can be used for food poisoning, but it also has a very powerful effect on the adrenals. And this was an acute exhaustion, not a chronic exhaustion. And I took a dose, 6 drops of this homeopathic remedy. 2 hours later, I'm still going strong. They're doing Q&A and going, somebody raised their hand at the end of this thing, said, "Robert, this is the most amazing thing. We saw you. You were barely awake. You were hanging on by a thread. And now 2 hours later, you're still going. What happened?" And I'm like, I forgot I took that homeopathic remedy. You talk about the ultimate placebo effect. I forgot I took it. And I'm like going strong. And so it was one of those cases, we talk about adrenal burnout since it's the topic, that if you nail the right remedy, it's like, I didn't take caffeine. I didn't drink coffee. I don't even know if I drank yerba mate back then. I don't remember. But it was like, dude, that's supposed to not do that. It's fake medicine, right? It's phony medicine. The skeptics say it's not real. And so that was one of those stories where I look back, I go, dude, that you couldn't have planned that better to show, hey, homeopathy can really work. Watch what happened before your very eyes. And so that's my adrenal burnout story of that day years ago from Georgia to California. Was that at all interesting, or is that like just a time filler?
I don't think I'd heard that story.
No, it's been a while since I brought that up. It's one of those things where you can't plan for, like Spirit scripts this thing to show people what can happen. And I'm like, I'm not that good of an actor to go, oh, I'll just pretend this, right? Yes. I can't do that. So anyway. All right, what's going on out there? We've got bonus time on the Robert Scott Bell Show before we're over because our guest is we couldn't make it work today. So Liberty Lady thought it was interesting. At least one person did. By the way, arsenicum is a great remedy for the adrenals. I will say this, though, that I don't want you to rely on it to live a debauched life where you don't sleep, you don't eat right, and you go, I'll just take some arsenicum or a homeopathic remedy for adrenal burnout. You still got to live differently. But it can rescue you in a pinch. It can be really powerful, its impact on the adrenals to get you through a crisis is the point there. So what else have we got?
Brianna Sagdahl has just popped into the chat room there saying hi. We haven't talked to her in a while.
Oh, I'm reading it, but they're harpy today up there. HAARP. A lot of ionized HARP full of coal fly ash. I call it coal flash.
It's kind of cloudy. I don't see.
You don't see it where you are? Oregon's a big state. It might not be everywhere.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Prolozone, King, adrenal burnout, free download, ebook. Okay. Did everybody get the phone number to reach Dr. King? I hope so. All right. So do you want me to talk more about this Beyond Real ID scenario, or did I just burn that subject out? Because I'm still warming up for tonight's broadcast. When I say broadcast, lecture or presentation at a local city hall that I'm going to be doing that. So,
well, you got more to say?
I always have more to say. If you have a question specific to anything that I presented or haven't presented yet, or if folks are out there, this is kind of a early bonus time on the Robert Scott Bell Show. I will say, shout out to my friends at Better Way Health and their Beta Kids. Y'all keep your kids healthy. Keep their immune system modulated with the Beta Kids. If they're too young to take the capsules, you can chew on these little gummies and get some beta glucan. So thanks to Better Way Health for that.
Indeed. Yeah, I just what is it we don't know still about the Real ID here?
Well, I think it goes to the heart.
We got the tattoos down, right?
Yeah. Well, we went beyond it with the tattoos. I mean, that goes to the next level. And of course, because the question that is asked is like, well, if the Real ID is all about mandatory vaccinations, ultimately, not yet, that's the thing that comes later. How do you explain the kids? Because kids don't have to have an ID. And that's true. And that's where this comes into play, because there's going to be more and more concern of people going, yep, I got my vaccine records right here. Look, and you make it, or you have a doctor sign out, any number of things that they want to get beyond, so you can't escape it. So you can't pretend it, right? You can't take somebody's eyeball out of their head and use it for the eye scan, right? They want to make sure it's your skin. And so this is an increasingly draconian way where they can shut down any freedom at all. You can't come to school. Before you get on the school bus, we're going to scan you, and let's see what that scan says. Oh, you haven't got the MMR booster. You're not on that bus. You're not coming to that school. Name the thing that they'll be able to control through that. But again, this idea of identification. I know a lot of folks haven't even considered this. He's like, look at this, Bill Gates thing. It's like day glow tattoos that you can't see except they can be scanned. What is the purpose for identification? Well, it's control. Is it not? Is it to control what you can do, where you can go, when you can do it, when you can go? Why not on your own recognizance? Move about the earth cabin as long as you're harming no one. But they claim the moral high ground by saying that you are harming someone just by being able to move about the earth cabin freely if you haven't been vaccinated. With no scientific evidence to support it, because the people who are the threats to the health of other people are the ones who are shedding from vaccines, who are immunocompromised and can't even manifest the symptoms of a quote-unquote disease or infection because they're too weak, and they have circulating viral debris that can explode onto somebody else. So we've got to push back, with the science as well, although, again, the scientific argument should be secondary to the freedom or religious freedom argument, the freedom to move about. But if they convince enough people the germ theory is real, and they have around the world in the West, then they get to say, yeah, well, you know what? You're just a walking typhoid Mary. And then they can even target religious minorities like Hasidic Jews in Rockland County or the Amish in upstate New York. And then they have the plausible deniability to say, we're really not targeting religious people. We're just protecting everybody else. It's the good of the whole. It's a collectivist communist ideology that permeates the culture via the wrong-headed view that the germ is the cause of disease, and that we must avoid all germs. We must avoid all manifestation or rites of passage through these childhood infections, which is not true. In fact, the opposite is true. We must go through them in order to strengthen and be able to be viable adults with a good immune system, much less not descend into chronicity, cancer, neurological degradation, any number of behavioral disorders that associate with the destruction of the gut microbiome or the home for it. And so we're dealing with an ignorant, wholly ignorant population in fear of their own shadow. And that's been embedded and implanted before these so-called microchips or microneedle insertions. That's been embedded into the consciousness by repetition, by authoritarians telling you to be afraid, be very afraid, by dictatorships, right, saying the germ is the cause of disease. Ignore Antoine Béchamp. Let's erase him from history. Go back to the germ theory. And then we can also worship Jenner, who scraped some pus from the cowpox, the udders, and cut open the skin of innocent victims, and they would end up dying of sepsis or losing limbs. And from that, we praise this vaccination, vaca meaning cow, the entire paradigm, with all kinds of scrapings that end up in a syringe, even with all the technology we have today. Unknown genetic material or purposefully placed. Nanoparticulate contamination. Corvelva studied it, found it. Pay no attention. Glyphosate in there. You religious people are getting in the way who don't want to inject porcine-derived substances or aborted fetal cells, etc. So religious people are the enemy of the pharmaceutical church. Isn't that interesting? People that hold genuine beliefs. Yes, before the era of antibiotics or before the era of vaccinations. They didn't write about it. By the way, Super Don, did you get that message I sent you, I think, of the guy who has the Church of Natural Law or something? Do you remember seeing that? I think he froze up. He's going to have to reboot. Maybe when he comes back, we can follow up on that. But we are dealing with manipulation, dampening of consciousness, weakening of our will through many different things, including fluoride, we've talked about, multiple injections, multiple antibiotics, food devoid of vitamins, minerals, and trace minerals that are crucial and necessary for all biological functions. And then if we have a will of our own still, it's dampened further by the constant repetition through government indoctrination centers, aka public schools, to teach the glory of centralized bureaucracy, the glory of government, the glory of collectivism, take one for the team, these concepts that become embedded into our very DNA. And so those of you who are speaking up to much of your community, unless you've plugged into your friendship, your conscious community that is aware of these things, they look at you as a potential enemy, a spreader of disease, unclean, as they target religious minorities, Amish, Jews, whatever. And the symbolism of the real idea is not lost on me, nor should it be lost on you, the gold star. Going way back. Super Don, I asked before you disconnected, I know you're back, you had asked me about, did somebody establish a church that had in their dogma issues of being anti-vaccine? I think I sent you the guy's name and the name of the church, like the Church of Natural Law. Was it in Skype or something? I sent it to you a few days ago.
Yeah, I checked it out. I was on my phone at the time when you sent it to me and stuff. And it looks like it was what I was curious about.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of makes sense to me. That,
do you have the name of it? Can you find it on your phone? Is it too hard to find?
Oh, I could probably find it.
He's a good guy, very smart guy that did this, and I really like what he's done. Give you an option if that's what you need to do.
Take me a second to find it. It was natural. Let's see here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can find it here.
Liberty Lady. Greater good equals communism equals death. Very well said, Liberty Lady. Just reading some of the comments here. We have an unalienable right to travel unencumbered. I agree, Brianna, but of course, if they have their way, the pharmaceutical church and the convincing of the majority of people, in this case, they get vaccinated. Let's say if we have 80, 90% or more coverage of the children of America with vaccines overall, would you say that most parents believe in communism? At least when it comes to their kids, they've turned their kids over to the state, the medical police state, to be vaccinated. And their next step is to say you can't move about the cabin without taking the sacrament. That's why this is a religious argument or an anti-religious argument. The elites will just pray for some of the ink and the tattoo it's in that they use. Interesting. What's the name? Yes, a Liberty Lady wants to know the name, Super Don, so you're going to have to scroll back.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it here real quick.
Okay, I apologize. That's not at the tip of
okay.
my tongue or fingers or head or brain, whatever. It's just not there. Like I said, we're going into territory we hadn't planned to go today because of technical difficulties.
There we go. It's called the Natural Law Church. And it's
Natural
found
Law
at
Church.
thenaturallawchurch.com.
Okay. And what was his name? Did I give you his name? I think I did.
Yeah, here I'll pull it up here real quick because it was interesting. It looked like he did all of the things that you would need to do in order to create what it was that I was talking about. His name is Ricardo Beas? Beas?
I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, Ricardo, yeah.
And he does a number of different things. He's into music and stuff and like that and stuff. But he created this church called the Natural Law Church. And as you read the details on it, it specifically talks about how vaccination is something that is not okay. And so by becoming a member of this church, you can then say, I now belong to a church that, and it also incorporates and will work with other denominations as well. In conjunction with it.
You don't have to give up the church you belong to or whatever at this point. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the point, is trying to make it easier for folks. And I appreciate that. Ricardo's doing a good job with that. But as I said, you got to stand your ground and recognize that whether you belong to a church that has official dogma against vaccination or not, your personal, deeply held convictions are a religious belief. Now, I'd say according to the Supreme Court, I'm not saying not according to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court acknowledges it, believe it or not. But it's not because the Supreme Court acknowledges that it's true. I'm just saying that they've already, said, yeah, that's for real. But it doesn't stop the liberal New Yorkers, the Californians, attempting in New Jersey and other states. And that's the weird thing about Mississippi or West Virginia. I don't know if they're a blue or a red state, but they were long before, that they eliminated religious exemption. Long before this was an issue, that's been the case. But now it's basically the reason for being in the democratically controlled states. That's why we talked about earlier, as much as I didn't want to, have to acknowledge in Arizona, red state, trying to make a law that says you can't force these vaccines. And then what was the other state, the secondary state in that discussion? Virginia, that says we're going to allow children of any age that we could say they can basically understand what we're saying and they can basically defy their parents, according to the doctor, pharmacist, nurse, or whatever that says you need this vaccine. So. Is there a link to this Natural Law Church? I don't recall.
Hold on. Yeah. Thenaturallawchurch.com.
We'll have to get, maybe we get Ricardo on the show. That would be kind of cool.
There we go. Put the in. There you go. Thenaturallawchurch.com.
Okay.
Indeed. I want to give a shout out to Michelle Cotterman. I know we're right at the end of the show here. Maybe we'll talk about this on Monday. I've heard of you've heard of the Rust Belt, right? The Bible Belt, the Corn Belt, right? You ever heard of the Flu Belt?
The Flu Belt? No.
You will on Monday. We'll talk about this on Monday. Apparently, there's a section of the country that now is the Flu Belt.
The Flu Belt. All right.
Yes.
Is that where all the flu shots are being given in the flu manifests, perhaps?
This is some imaginary thing some ER doctor in Ohio came up with.
Wow. Fascinating. Yes. Fascinating.
Yes.
All right, folks. We got a lot more healing to do. For UK Health Radio, we're signing off, but we got a little bit more. We're going to look. I'm going to have Super Don, and I'll scour the comments and questions. If you have some things you want to ask me before we sign off for the weekend, don't go anywhere. The show is not technically over. And the power to heal is technically still yours, as it always was and always will be. It's just a matter of you living that reality, starting with a belief system and then, of course, manifesting in your life to prove the concept. I don't ask you to believe it on face value. Prove it to yourself. That's part of what we do here on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Thanks, Super Don. Thanks to Dr. King. Sorry about the tech difficulties. We'll get him back on next Friday for a Healing Revolution. So hold on to your adrenals until then. The power to heal.
The Robert Scott Bell Show. Robert Scott Bell Show.
Scott Bell Show.
Check out a sweet offer that my friends at Better Way Health give. This is an immune boosting supplement that you can't get anywhere else.
Beta-glucan activates and enhances your immune response to invaders.
These things are brilliant for modulating the immune system.
Someone has a need for help in supporting their immune system, I'm looking at the glucan product.
It's amazing, and there's been an enormous amount of research done on this.
It's the most studied immunomodulator on Earth, with over 14,000 published studies referencing beta-glucan, and it's currently being tested in roughly 100 clinical trials.
If you like your dietary supplements with validated science, there's nothing that has more behind it than the beta-1 3D glucan from Better Way Health.
Probably the most heavily researched substances that I'm aware of that modulates the immune system.
It rebuilds your immune system.
Consistency and quality are everything.
Here, you want to see my supplement drawer? Here it is. Get ready.
I was putting together my research and I tripped on this supplement called beta-glucan.
There it is. It's very small. I take beta-glucans, immune booster.
You don't have to worry that you're overstimulating the immune system. We have been just amazed.
I take like 2 a day from Better Way Health.
It's been tested against about 36 other immune boosting products and found to be superior.
If you have an immune system or you want one, beta-1 3D glucan, that transfer point is very unique. It's going to get the results that you're looking for. I support it and I use it.
Better Way Health, I got to tell you, you can spend more time, you can spend more money, but you cannot give better service than you're going to get from those guys down there. They are truly 24 karat.
The brand you want to get is called Transfer Point Beta-1 3D Glucan, and you can get it from betterwayhealth.com. Let's spread the message about beta-glucans. It's a powerful substance from nature that can help you.
All right, the Robert Scott Bell Show continues now. And you talk about improv radio, stand-up improv. That's what I had to do when Dr. King, the technology wasn't smiling on us today. And we'll get Dr. King back on next week. There's Super Don. I think he's still here. Yep. Oh, by the way, Super Don, my wife looked up a flu belt. And apparently there's a military flu belt that's really a belt. And it's called an FLU belt. I don't know what it stands for.
FLU?
Yeah, flu belt. And it's in the military. There's a flu belt. And I don't know if that has anything to do with influenza, but I don't know if that's
I got to Google that, see if I can figure out what that is.
Anyway, or DuckDuckGo it for lack of a better, or for having a better search engine that's not Google. Anyway, scouring the, Super Don's talking. Sorry about that. Someone's talking to him. Someone's got your ear, Super D.
Sorry.
No problem.
I'm here.
Scouring the comment section, whether on our website or through social media, before we hit the weekend finally. It doesn't happen for me until after my lecture tonight. As I said, I don't know if it's going to be live streamed, but we'll try and make it available as a presentation because they say that they are going to videotape it. But for me, I'm not off yet. And then we got Jeffrey Jackson scheduled for Sunday, which is awesome. We hadn't had him on in a while.
Correct.
And who knows what else.
Yes.
But I think it's been we've spanned 2 decades this week. You realize that? We have spanned 2 decades in a week's worth of broadcast. How is that possible? And having Wednesday off. That's crazy.
And it's 2020. I don't know. It's just it's hard to keep up with time. As it seems like as I'm getting older, time is going faster, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's interesting. But here we are, 2020 now.
Yeah.
Just like Barbara Walters would say.
Yeah.
And what do we got? What are we looking forward to here in this coming year?
I'm looking forward to having
what's the New Year's resolution for the Robert Scott Bell Show?
Have Michael Bolden from the 10th Amendment Center on more than once a year. How's that?
Once a year.
I'm not asking for much, Michael. I reached out to him today. Say, hey, I wasn't even asking him to come on the show. I just wanted to chat. I miss chatting with him. I'm like, no, I don't have time today. I'm like, okay. I mean, he's one of the big people. I'm one of the little people. He didn't have time for me today. That's all right. But Bolden, the 10th Amendment Center, front and center today on the show, and it's a big slide or two in my presentation tonight on Real ID. Twice, he says, we'll be on twice this year. That's not enough. It's never enough, Bolden. Anyway, 10th Amendment Center article, fantastic to start us out today. And go back and listen to the open if you just joined us. Go back and listen to that open. The very, very intense discussion. And you know, he baited me into this too. I'm not saying he did, but he sent us this article. And I love that we did it. And it was the lead story out of Arizona. But it forced me to do what I claim not to like to do. And Michael winks at me and says, you do like to do it. You're talking about the Hegelian dialectic difference between Democrats and Republicans. But I did have some commentary to acknowledge that Trump as a Republican doing the same thing as Democrat presidents when it comes to overseas kinetic action. So we're intellectually honest about these things and saying, you know, it's not just unique to one party, but specific to the issue of mandatory vaccinations, getting children to somehow be able to be instantly at 6 years old enough to consent to vaccines without parental knowledge. That's not coming from Republicans right now. This is coming from Democrats. I have to acknowledge that. And that's a problem for you in Democrat states and Democrats, ultimately. And then this is not a ringing endorsement for everything Republicans do, just so you know. But we have to, you know, be super damn sensitive to this. You know it. I am. But we have to call it out, you know, when these behaviors manifest.
Look, I mean, there's nothing wrong. Listen, I mean, right is right, wrong is wrong. I could draw the analogy to whenever I bring up a story from CNN and you want to throw rotten fruit at me. You know, it's not that I'm saying everything on CNN is okay now because we looked at one story.
Yeah.
If it's right, it's right. Okay. And if a Democrat is right, it's right. If a Republican is right.
Yeah.
There are some things that say Democrats, you would say they stand for. Okay, principles that they stand on and stuff like that. Used to be a long time ago, it was individual rights, right? Not so much anymore, which is really weird. There's been these weird flip-floppings and stuff of what's considered Democrat or Republican or conservative or liberal. So, you know, if something is considered conservative and we agree with it, it's okay. It's all right. You know, you don't get worried about that.
It's like this, Super D. Let's say the Democrats were the ones promoting family autonomy over children and you know, protecting them against vaccine, and the Republicans were promoting it. We'd be giving hell to the Republicans. So it is rooted in principle. What we're doing. Yeah. And of course,
we have in the past, we have, you know, listen, but here's the thing. We do consider ourselves very libertarian.
Yes.
And libertarianism is much closer to conservatism than it is to liberalism. It just is. Okay.
Yeah. Outside of the modern context.
When you look on the spectrum, you know, you're going to find that. In fact, I think there's a quote somewhere by Ronald Reagan at one time. You know, people look at Ronald Reagan as
the heart of conservatism is libertarianism.
Libertarianism.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, when we talk the word liberal versus classical liberalism, they're different today. And I talked earlier about definitions of words, how we are trapped through the manipulation of words. Like we talked about the Arizona bill that talked about the term pupil very specifically. There's a reason he selected that. And I talked about the term person having a definition. It's not what you think it is when it's done in federal regulation. So you have to be so careful with the words you use because you assume you know the definition and they're using a different one and they will use that against you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So did you see Bolden was saying that the reason why he missed the early part of the show is because he had to take pictures of food?
You stinker. Yeah, I know. Bolden.
I'm always teasing him about the fact that it's like if you go and look at his Facebook page, it's like cool sunrises and sunsets.
Yeah.
And food.
New Year's resolution: support the 10th Amendment Center if you don't already. That would be a great thing to do. Oh, my mom was promoting like a fundraiser for the Institute for Responsible Technology on her Facebook thing. I was like, that was cool. She loves Jeffrey Smith. That's a great cause too. So continue on. Not that it's after giving season now that we're in January 2020. Keep on giving whatever you can, whenever you can, in service. If you can't do money, that's fine too. Let's see what else we got to wrap it up before. I've got to work on my PowerPoint. It was coming together right before the show. My wife and I sat and looked at the flow of, there's some devastating things I've got to develop, you know, some of which I talked about today on the air, which was a good warm up for tonight, but it's a lecture I've not given yet. Technically, I've not given this lecture. You know, I usually focus on more on health and healing, and I pepper in 10th Amendment stuff, a little bit of this, but it's more on specific physical ailments, for instance, and how to remedy them, how to recover from them. Today, it's a spiritual issue and a political issue and everything in between with Real ID, and as I'm relating it to inevitable, if they get their way, vaccine mandates and beyond. So I'm going to work on massaging the order of the slides a little bit this afternoon before I have to go to the lecture. So,
all right.
Yeah. Anything on Facebook Live or Periscope that you can monitor before we sign off for the day or the weekend?
Periscope.
I feel like I can dance. I'm dressed up for dancing, and I can't dance really, but I can shake it.
Is that what you think? What you're wearing looks like something you would do for
dancing? You know what?
I'm thinking more like, it looks more like you could be hosting some type of like PBS science show.
Are you calling me a nerd?
Or maybe singing some type of Bing Crosby tune of some sort, maybe, or maybe reciting some type of Def Jam poetry, or I'm not sure.
I thought you were going with Def Leppard, but okay, whatever you say. All right. Any other comments or questions before we sign off till Sunday's show with Jeffrey Jackson and who else? I don't know.
No, I think we're good. So yeah, Jeffrey Jackson on Sunday, and then we'll be back on Monday doing what we do best.
Yeah, please sign up for email alerts at robertscottbell.com. And if you can become a Patreon supporter, we would really appreciate that. We're working very hard to be able to get Super Don's computer upgraded next, so a lot of the glitchiness can go away. We've solved a lot of my issues. I'm looking at the CPU right now. It's at 26%. It's great compared to the 90s I was barely surviving on. So with that, love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Happy New Year still, even with all the intensity going on. We're living in very interesting times, and there's a reason for it. Put on dark sunglasses to complete the outfit, and you'll be the man in black.
There you go.
Right. Then I'd be cool. But you know who makes me cool? It's Steve Felt with that look. Rocking the health world. That's the back of the T-shirt or the front of the T-shirt? I can't even remember now. I think that's the front of the T-shirt, the new T-shirt. So we're working on finding a provider to print the T-shirts for those of you who are Patreon level members that already get one, or if we make it available for purchase, very cool swag for the Robert Scott Bell Show. Yeah. So Bolden's contribution to the lecture tonight was like, I got one article on Real ID. I'm like, you're the 10th Amendment Center. You only got one article. What's up with that? And that's me gripe, bitching, moaning, and complaining. It's like, just do my PowerPoint for me, Michael, please. No, I got it. I got it going on, and you're in. You're in it, my buddy, my brother. All right. Thanks, y'all. Lots more healing to go, but we're out of time for today. We'll see you back on Sunday Fun Day with Jeffrey Jackson. Go to robertscottbell.com, and please share the show. Pay it forward. Bring the power to heal back where it belongs with each and every one of you, y'all, your friends, your family, your neighbors, your frenemies, whatever. Healing is yours.